Good evening.
Good evening to you. I shall.
Your more structured approach makes a lot of sense to start this off.
All right. Well, there's 11 people waiting, so I'm going to admit them all.
Okay.
Well, actually, we'll just sit in silence for a couple of minutes, and I'll start it promptly at 6 o'clock.
Okay, I'm going to get up and go get a drink of water then. Is that all right?
That's perfect. All right, the witching hour arrives. I'm going to let everyone in. You should be unmuted.
I am unmuted and Arlene has texted me that we're already live. Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We
Good evening,
Andrew and
Tom.
I are still trying to figure out how to best make all this work. And we thought it'd be better if we were a little well organized before we brought everybody onto the call at one time, and it'd be more similar to us convening a meeting. So thank you all. And it looks like on my screen that everyone is here. We are already streaming live on Facebook. We know that signal is going out in that regard. So if I could go ahead and call our meeting to order. And Marvin, tonight is your night to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Be glad to.
If we could have a moment of silence for all the many things that are happening in our community and world now. And then we're finished with that moment of silence. Marvin, if you could lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Be glad to, Tom.
Thank you.
Shall we pledge? I pledge allegiance
Yes.
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
For which
for which it stands, one nation,
nation
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
justice for
for
all.
all.
Thank you.
Kind of hard to do when we're all trying to get together at the same time, isn't it?
It really is. That was our best one so far, and it would come on the night, which is, I hope, the last time we have to meet under this format.
Good.
Oh, anyway, each of you should also have a copy of the minutes from our last regularly scheduled meeting. If you can look those over, and if there are no corrections, we'll entertain a motion that they be approved.
I make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Todd.
Second.
And second from Tammy. Thank you. If there are no questions or corrections, all in favor say aye. Thanks. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. Also, you should have received a copy of the latest check register. And if you can indicate if you received that. Thank you. Unfortunately, I have to report that there have been no public comments submitted. And I have only a relatively few mayor's comments tonight. Did want to let the council know that construction has begun on the Maddox Street project. That is going to involve some street closures for a while. So we're always going to try and provide an access for people that live in the area to come and go. But while this is under construction, you may get some calls about Maddox Street being blocked for a while. The price of progress, I think. Also, Eddie has continued his work on creating the street paving list for this year, so that we can apply all of our MAP funds. He and Devin and I talked today about the manner in which we will hold the public hearing that is required prior to us approving the MAP list. You all will recall on the council that it's typically just an exercise in we open a hearing before the council meeting, no one makes a comment, then we close the hearing and begin the council meeting. But that's an obligation that we have to provide to the public to be able to do that. So we're figuring out how to address that public hearing, but it brought back into focus that if there are streets that you all might have that you don't need attention, this is a great time to let us know, and we'll be glad to get those on the list. To remind the council that the public fireworks are on for the 4th of July. And I've just from what I hear talking with people there, since there aren't a lot of other activities, that the fireworks are being really anticipated. The other thing that I've been told is that the sales at the private firework tents around Scott County are very brisk this year, more so than in past years. So I think it's a combination of the public buckled down for a while. The 4th of July falls on a weekend, and it's going to be pretty weather. So my dog and others' dogs will probably go crazy, but I think we're going to have a lot of fireworks for the 4th of July.
Probably.
Yeah. Also, a bit of good news I wanted to give the council. Census numbers continue to roll in. And we have now achieved the census report that came out today. City of Georgetown has had a 74.4% response rate, which is about 10 points higher than we've ever done in the past. Scott County as a whole is at 74% even. And with the pandemic and other things going on, they're continuing to accept the count. So if any citizens are listening or anybody wants to take advantage of that will still be counted. I wanted to touch just for a minute on financial issues, since we're going to pass a budget amendment tonight, and we're going to hopefully have a second reading of the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And Stacy and I and the Finance Committee have made a promise to you to keep you as up to date as we possibly can about finances. Later tonight, we'll address a resolution accepting our CARES funding, which we had talked about previously is potentially at the range of $2.4 million that we know now can be used for some expenses that may have already been budgeted, which make those funds incredibly valuable to the city and the county. The other thing is we've been watching very carefully how the revenues are rolling in and just how much of a decrease we're seeing. And to this point, we're only beginning to get numbers for April and estimates for May. But the decreases do not seem to be as steep as we first anticipated. We don't have a definitive picture yet because we need several months of these questionable revenue periods to really be examined. But I'm beginning to be a little more cautiously optimistic about our budget and the way in which we may rebound. So at the last meeting, I had several questions concerning some of those revenues and what unemployment numbers were. And staff got me some of that information, and I'd like to share it back with the council. Just among some of the questions we had from the last meeting, Tanny, you had asked about the motor tax, vehicle tax office, and it is Monday, June 29th.
Thank you.
When they will open. Let's see. Karen, the pictures you sent of the colony were pretty helpful. And I believe the police showed up that same day and had to work on that. Federal, as far as unemployment rate, the Federal Reserve Bank puts April's unemployment rate at 21.5%. And that is up 3.4% from February. And interesting point that with that data is this is based on place of residence, not place of employment. If anybody had wondered what that data was based on, it's based on place of residence and not place of employment. Also, just comparing some of our most recent payroll numbers, it looks like April of 19's payroll tax receipts, David, were $1,149,000. And for 20%, or excuse me, for 2020, April payroll receipts were 983,000, 86% of what last year's payroll numbers were. So it is a decrease, but it's not as severe as we thought it might begin to look like.
Thanks, Mayor.
And net profits showed a similar decline, but we've got some of those returns and are not due until July, so the information is real incomplete. But we do have information to work with, and we're going to get it to you just as quickly as we can. Okay, and that finishes the mayor's comments, unless there are any questions about those comments. And if not, we're now going to be delighted to hear from Heather, who is on our screen, and we have our audit presentation. So Stacy, do you need to introduce her, or we just turn Heather loose?
No, just she's the partner at RFH who oversees our audit, and between the pandemic and some other things, it's getting presented a little later than usual than we normally do, but she will give us a quick update on that.
Sounds good. And Andrew, you may have to give Heather permission to share her screen.
He's got it.
Okay, if she needs to do that for us. Heather.
Well, thank you all for having me. Sorry we're in this format, but you do what you can with what you've got, right? I've got your 2019 audit results, and I'm going to share my screen with you so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. Normally, I would have the bound books for you. We actually are putting those hard copies in the mail. I think today they went out, but you should have probably received an electronic copy. I believe I've got my screen shared. Can everyone see that? Okay, great. So 2019 audit results. The two most important things, from my opinion in the audit is our auditor's opinion, right? You want to know if you've got a clean opinion or not. That is on page, I guess this is page 1 and 2. That's correct. And what you really want to look for on page 1 under the independent auditor's report is down at the bottom of the screen here, where it says opinions. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So again, that's what you're looking for when you get an audit. That's a clean opinion. That's kind of as good as it gets in the auditing world, okay? So that's our opinion to you on your financial statements. Because you're a government, you have a second report. This is the report on compliance and other matters. You had the bound booklet. It's the last couple of pages in the book every year. So there's two pieces in here that I want to point out, and I point them out every year. There's an internal control over financial reporting. So we don't go in and test all of your controls, but we do look at them and get a sense of things that you could, any recommendations, that sort of thing. And we tell you whether or not there were anything that we considered to be material weaknesses in your internal controls. So we did not see anything during our review that we considered to be a material weakness. So if you look there, it says during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we considered to be material weaknesses. So again, in the auditing world regarding internal control for governments, that's kind of as good as it gets. Then the last paragraph is on compliance and other matters. So we have the very last sentence there. The results of our test disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported. So if we had something that you weren't in compliance with some law or regulation that we felt like it was important to tell you about, it would have been in this letter. So there wasn't anything there either. So again, in the auditing world, that's what you're looking for. That's a clean opinion. That's as good as it gets. Now, I'm not going to get into these numbers a whole lot, but I do just want to point out a few things in your audited financials. Obviously, we're in June. You guys are worrying about money that's coming in now, not so much about what happened back then. But I do want to point out, just because you don't only see it once a year, the statement of net position. This is your kind of everything of the city. This is page 10 of the financial statements. This is kind of the one time a year you get to see your governmental activities, the business type activities, which includes Georgetown Municipal, all in one place. This is all your assets, all your capital assets that are long-term in nature, all your liabilities, debt, everything in one place. And so I just want to point out a couple of numbers on here. So you've got total assets. In 2019, that was 233 million, just a little over that. So it was up about 25 million. You've got total liabilities of 82,762,000, up a little bit from the previous year. You'll see on here you've got the net pension liability and then the net other post-employment benefit liability. Those are the two pieces that make up your proportionate share of the CERS underfunded obligation. So, for a number of years, we've had to put that on your books. You can see that the pension piece actually went up this year, whereas the other post-employment benefits, the OPEB, went down a little bit. And then net position, that is what's left over. If you were able to theoretically take all your assets, liquidate those, pay off all your liabilities, net position is the mathematical what is left over. So this year you're at, let me zoom that in a little bit, 160, almost 161 million compared with 144 in the previous year. So you're up. You all made some investments in capital assets this year. You all had a number of things going on that caused that increase, but capital assets is one of the biggest ones. Your statement of activities, this is kind of the one time a year you see kind of this format. This is, everything for the city as a whole again. your statement of activities show that your change in net position, so revenues over expenses, went up almost $17 million, $16,856,000. Now that does include, you all took in a number of streets this year, and so we have to put those on the books, and so that does include that, but your change in net position was positive this year, $16 million. The other statement that people often like to look at is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the governmental funds. So this one shows your total governmental fund revenue for the year, 33 million, up from 28, and your total expenditures, but just a little under 37 million, up from almost 29 in the previous year. And you can see the big one there is the capital outlay, where you all invested in some long-term capital assets. So again, like I said, this is a clean opinion. It's as good as it gets. We have a secondary communication that I think I have that on my screen as well. Let me see if I can get it pulled up. Yep, there we go. So this is our secondary communication that we give to you all every year. There isn't really anything in this letter that is going to be unusual in nature. This is the letter where we tell you all whether or not we had any difficulties in doing the audit. Was there any misstatements or adjustments that didn't get posted? Were there any disagreements with management? There wasn't anything like that. So, this letter is really just standard language, a required communication with you all. But really, are there any questions on anything I went over? Like I said, I just wanted to hit kind of the high notes. It's a clean opinion, which is what you all want. No issues with internal controls or compliance. So that's kind of what y'all are looking for.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions for Heather or Stacy?
And I just wanted to make quick that they do have the audit and the letter she's referring to in their email. I asked Tracy to send that out.
Okay, that was again another example, Stacy. It was the best we could do mimicking the real world. Normally the council would have received their bound copy tonight when they got to the meeting. We emailed it as you got to the meeting. Is this Stacy? I forget. Is this a audit needs to accept or approve?
They can take that action if they'd like to accept it. Yes.
If there are any questions, this is our grand chance. If not, would be glad to entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you.
Connie.
Thank you, Connie.
Second.
And second from Tammy. Thanks, Tammy. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Nice job, Heather. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me. You all have a good rest of the meeting. Have a good night.
We'll do it.
I'm gonna say nice job on Stacy's part too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stacy. But you have to stick around, Stacy, because we have other things to do. Item 8 on your agenda, GMWSS. Chase.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have scheduled RFH. Heather's staff will be at Georgetown Municipal in August for our audit, annual audit. So tonight we have 4 purchase orders for council consideration, and if council will allow, I'll run through all 4 and then take any questions that you might have. First, we have a purchase order to Judy Construction Company, and that is in the amount of $1,660,000 for the construction project. It is the wastewater treatment plant 2 sludge processing upgrade. This purchase order follows the construction contract that was approved by the board and council last month. This is a budgeted project, and this was an open construction bid where Judy was accepted as the low bidder. Second purchase order is for Clark Electric in the amount of $10,995. This is for rebuilding one of our pumps at College Pump Station. We received quotes for both new and rebuilding the pump, substantially cheaper than a new pump. And we've had a lot of success with the rebuilds from Clark Electric, and the rebuild carries a warranty that we are comfortable with it being a an old pump that's served us well. Third purchase order is for $100,000 to GRW Engineering for continued design work on wastewater treatment plant number 1 upgrade and expansion. This is for work completed in both the April and May billing periods, and we believe that the progress definitely matches the current level of payments for the project, and we're very pleased with the progress that GRW has made. We believe by the end of June, we will submit not only our facilities plan that's required for the treatment plant upgrade, and that's a system-wide wastewater facilities plan, and we will also be submitting the treatment plant process to Division of Water for their construction permit review. That's the big permit that we will accomplish. So we're pleased with the progress, pleased with the design, and have this purchase order for the billing period that I discussed, April and May. Finally, we have a purchase order to LAGCO for $620,094, and this is a purchase order to accompany the construction contract that was approved by the board and council last month, similar to the first purchase order mentioned. Again, LAGCO was the low bidder on the open bid process and recommended for award. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. They were actually the second low bidder. We had to throw out the low bidder, but this was the construction contract that was approved last month by board and council, and this is the PO that accompanies. So I'm happy to entertain any questions on any of these purchase orders if you have any.
One of them's a little bit larger than the others, Chase, but
And they're all budgeted, Chase?
Yes,
They're all
ma'am.
budgeted items?
I would say that the only one that it's budgeted, but the purchase order for the pump for $10,995, that just comes out of our O&M budget. It's not a specific line item.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion for all 4.
thank you.
I'll second.
And second, thank you, Mark. If there are no questions for Chase, all in favor of those 4 purchase orders, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Are there any opposed? Okay. We're done for the evening. Thank you. Item 9 on your agenda under city attorney is a resolution that I think the council will be very receptive to. It is the resolution accepting our CARES funding. So, Tracy, do you have that to read?
Yeah, but I don't need to read it if you all have read it.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How do we use it? Okay, it's $2.4 million. How do we use it? When do we get it? All that type of thing.
Andrew and Stacy and Megan have been doing the detailed work on this, Karen, looking at what we are eligible to use it for and the ways that we intend to apply with it. Some of those details are not finalized yet, but we wanted to go ahead and bring the resolution to the council to at least start the process of accepting the funds. Devin and Megan were having a final conversation today about confirming some possible uses that Megan was checking out. Devin, you may have more detail about that.
Yeah, Mayor, and Karen, to your question, it's reimbursement based. We would submit requests based on the format that DLG is giving to us. We can submit for any costs incurred March 1 through December 30th. So that's the window of expenses, I guess you would say. So what we would do is we've been tracking all, COVID related extra expenses by department. So we can use that tracking in conjunction with the form they've provided to submit for reimbursement. This isn't a race to the funds situation. We've been given our allocation. we'll enter into this agreement. And as long as I think we actually have till March 2021 to submit for all the reimbursements. But that's the window during which we can qualify for the expenses is March 1 through December 30th. So we can work out the kinks of that, but in order to start benefiting from it, we've got to enter into this MOA with the state, which like Mayor said, Megan's been working with DLG to make sure that we're compliant with all requirements, and I think we're good to go there. So like I said, it's reimbursement based, and we would just submit applications for kind of draws on the funding.
I have a question. Do we have to pay it back, Devin?
No.
Okay.
And the best way that I've been able to kind of conceptualize this CARES funding is that we had anticipated that our budget deficit for the coming budget year might be as great as $4.4 million. We're hoping we see evidence now that that will be less. But this CARES funding can be considered as making that a less deep hole to come out of. That we can get our budget situation perhaps remedied quicker if we don't have such a deficit in real time for the coming fiscal year. We will get a specific plan on what we intend to be reimbursed for, but we're just at the point tonight of accepting.
So if she cut out, I didn't hear if she cut out or she stopped my video, but so we can get up to this amount if we can meet the criteria for it.
Right. And we've determined that we're all set. We've worked with DLG to determine that. So once we enter into the MOA, essentially, this is use it or lose it money. Nobody else is going to get it. So we'll submit over the course of time, over the course of the next, I guess it's going to be 9 months for any expenses we've incurred from March to the end of December. And initially, we really didn't think these expenses would qualify, but DLG has been very, very clear that fire and police expenses are going to qualify under this money. They've been asked a lot, of course, but they've been clear that fire, police, and I believe EMS will qualify payroll expenses. They're essentially assuming that a great deal of that personnel, the time allocated by that personnel is dedicated to the pandemic. So that's a huge benefit to cities. And of course, that's the bulk of our expenses anyways, is, salary for those personnel. So that's a huge benefit. And that's a lot of what Megan and Stacy and Andrew have been calculating exactly how much we can submit of that.
So it's not overtime that we can say, but it can be the salary in general during even if they didn't work on it.
Right. DLG is essentially assuming that those payroll expenses, you have to take out, administrative personnel, assistants who are sitting in the office who aren't obviously on the street, but absent those handful of people, yes, they're assuming firefighters, police officers are dedicating the substantial amount of their time to COVID.
It's a win-win position here, situation.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if there are no additional questions, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made.
Second.
Oh, who did that second?
Tammy.
Oh, hey, Tammy.
Hey.
I get to look at one part of the screen. I don't see it all. Okay, motion's made and seconded. We'll have a lot of time over the next 9 months to talk about these reimbursements and our recovery in general. But at this point, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you.
It's a win-win.
Let's see, under the Finance Committee, we have 3 items. The first of which is second reading of the ordinance which will amend our current budget. So if there are no questions about that one, Tracy, I'll get you to read the summary.
Alrighty. An ordinance amending the annual budget ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. Summary, general fund. Prior year revenues are increased by 130,768. Intergovernmental revenue is increased by 45,000. General government expenses are increased by 8,900. City clerk expenses are increased by $985. Utilities are increased by $45,000. Fire expenses are increased by $19,333. Dispatch expenses are increased by $90,000. Public work expenses are increased by $5,000. Transfers to other funds are increased by $6,550. Grant fund. Federal grant revenues are increased by $27,000. Fire department expenses are increased by $27,000. Environmental services fund. Sanitation expenses are increased by $54,000. Cemetery fund. Intergovernmental revenues are increased by $6,550. Transfers from other funds are increased by $6,550. Cemetery expenses are increased by $13,100. Capital projects fund. Other revenues are increased by $208,000. Capital expenses are increased by $208,000. All ordinances or parts of ordinance and conflicts with this ordinance are hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetowncany.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time June 8th, 2020. Publicly read the second time June 22nd.
Thank you. And that was an endorsement of the speed reading course that we sent Tracy to. That was well done, Tracy.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Motion's been made to approve the ordinance. Thank you, Connie.
Second, Mayor.
Second by Marvin. Thank you. If there are no questions for Stacy, we'll call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Thompson?
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter? Unmute yourself. Mr. Showalter? Mark, can you unmute yourself?
Put a thumbs up, Mark.
Mark, can you put?
Yes.
There you go.
Sorry, I've lost you all.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Early?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. That carries. That passes. Next item under finance is second reading of the ordinance, actually approving the coming budget. So I'll give it to Ms. Tracy again.
An ordinance of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal period July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. Summary. Section 1. Adopts by incorporated exhibit the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. Governmental funds. Prior year revenue, $7,079,427. Revenues. Municipal taxation, $2,351,000. License and permits, $16,568,050. Fines and $143,250. Intergovernmental revenues, $7,164,384. Charges for service, $207,220. Other revenue, $35,000. Other financing sources, transfers, $78,416. Total city revenues, $26,547,320. Expenditures, general government, $1,516,707. City council, $187,435. City clerk, $269,792. Police, $7,254,235. Public works, $10,982,576. Fire, $5,811,555. Code enforcement, $326,641. Building inspection, $552,350. Dispatch telecommunications, $1,606,371. Utilities, $830,000. Community services, $1,154,634. Interlocal, $5,170,087. Capital outlay, $4,361,896. Debt service, $1,171,676. Transfers to other funds, $430,792. Total city expenditures, $33,626,747. Did I say 33,626,740? Proprietary funds, revenues, sanitation, $2,085,200. Recycling, $13,000. Cemetery, $230,000. Intergovernmental revenues, $246,434. Other revenue, $4,000. Other financing sources transfers, $352,376. Total proprietary revenue, $2,931,000. Expenditures, sanitation, $1,831,751. Recycling, $260,640. Stormwater, $359,303. Cemetery, $346,435. Total proprietary expenditures, $2,798,171. Section 2 authorizes the mayor to accept as provided in the Georgetown Purchasing Policy adopted Municipal Order 11028 to enter into any contracts or agreements necessary to fulfill the operation of city government within the allocations listed in this ordinance. Section 3 provides that if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such information shall not affect the validity of the remaining portion of the ordinance. Section 4 provides that all ordinances or reports of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Kentucky 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time June 8, 2020. Publicly read the second time June 22nd, 2020.
Thank you, Tracy. Is there a motion for approval of the budget?
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Connie. And is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Thank you. The Finance Committee, thank you. If there are any questions, David, Connie, or Stacy would be glad to answer them. And if they're not.
Mayor, I got a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not going to vote in favor of the budget. And one of the reasons I'm not voting in favor of the budget is going into the reserve. Now, you got some good news tonight, so hopefully that will help by the end of the budget cycle gets here. But it's going in so deep that it reminds me very much of things that we went through a few years ago. But then this year is going to be okay. But then next year, if things don't straighten up and you have another bad year that comes next year, you'll start to roll the city into the same position that I was in. So it's a dangerous budget, but it's going to have to be handled really, really tight. And I think you're going to get it approved tonight. But we're heading back, repeating history for a different reason. We're starting to repeat history again. And I wish this budget hadn't gone so heavy into the reserves. But I realize it's a budget, and maybe hopeful information came out with the 2.4 we'll have later, and maybe that'll help it out at the end. But I'd like to see a tighter budget going into it. Because I looked through, I could see some things you still maybe could have pulled out or set aside. But I'm just warning flag for next year doesn't straighten out what we're going to face the following year. But so I'm on the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, quick question for you. I mean, obviously tonight's the night that we're having the second reading on the budget, and we've had many meetings and discussions prior to this. And I guess I'd like to know specifically what you would do differently. To what magnitude? I mean, we're in a very unique situation that we've never been in before, dealing with it the best way we can possibly come up to deal with it. And I guess I would ask, what would you do differently? How would you propose a budget that you would support?
There's a few things in here that now I intended to zoom into the finance meetings to see what you people talked about finance meetings. Being a part of that gives an edge to just setting in the council, but we don't get in detail in the council meetings. And this silly Zoom meetings, although we have to do it like this, are hard to communicate back and forth. But just going through the budget that we had, the proposed budget, this document going through, there's a few things I could see you could pick out and maybe take a few things out. Now we're only talking a few $100,000 here and a few $100,000 there, but you know, one of the biggest issue we've got, we're going right back to where we were before. And one of those issues would be with Parks and Recreation. You got to get Parks and Recreation to grow. They even have more competition than they had before when we talked about them 2 years ago, trying to get them to work like a business organization. So we can't throw money at Parks and Recreation without there being a business plan in place. That should be part of it. Even if that means they have to close, or they have to, start thinking outside the box. If they have to close, if they have to donate the building to, just like we had to do with Cardone. We had to end up getting Cardone off our backs because of what it was draining us. The pavilion is draining the city and the county for that matter, but the pavilion is draining it. So maybe we need to think about that differently. Maybe YMCA, something like that needs to come along. It looks like it might be time to start thinking about the recycling center. It was closed for 2 months. People missed the recycling center, but maybe that's something that we could do away with. And that's a couple of $100,000 that's there. Code enforcement, there's an abatement of $100,000. During this kind of time when people are and all that, maybe we don't hit code enforcement so much, and there's some money in there because there's some little things in there here, there, and everywhere that could be addressed. But are we going to address it? Do we have the courage to address that? Another thing that you can't do it for this budget, but you're going to have to start looking at now is, do we privatize public works? Do we keep our sanitation, or do we keep that going as the same as it is going? Although it's making money for itself until we buy a truck. So we got to start seriously and watch what the rest of this year does for it. Because, this year we can doing the budget this way. Next year we can't go. We've gone into reserves almost every year into the budget process to balance the budget. So yes, we're out of line with the revenues. That will be addressed too, one way or the other. But on the flip side of it, we can't keep going into reserves because we're going to be right back where I was when 0.5 is all we had in reserves. And at that time, it was 1.5, I think, is what we were going in behind when I took off, pulled that back. So we only went into reserves at that 700,000, but we only had 3.5 in reserves. So we can't balance the back of the budget, continue doing this on reserves. We're going to have to start doing it differently. So it may be too late for this process to do it differently, but we've got to start doing it differently.
I guess I would say in life, whether it's our home, whether it's in business or within city government, one of the reasons you have reserves is to deal with situations like this. And this is obviously a very unexpected, disastrous situation. But early in our meetings, we were anticipating that it was going to be much worse than this. Some of the best news that we've gotten, obviously just recently, is the CARES funding. That's in comparison, that's just, it's outstanding news. It was something that we hoped for, we wished for, and it's somewhat the answer to our prayers, because it's so dramatic and it's going to help us so much. We felt that taking a conservative approach as we have, that we're going to continue to evaluate things. We're hopeful that the revenue will improve going forward. And I guess we're seeing some signs of that, and that we can make adjustments. But we didn't see that there was anything else that we could dramatically cut anyway, to make a significant difference. And we feel that this is as good a situation as we could be in, considering all the circumstances. So to not support it at the very last moment, I would always like to know in advance if someone's got issues, if they've got concerns, and if they have a better way of doing something. And I haven't heard that. Nobody's presented that to me tonight. And we've obviously got a limited amount of time to pass a budget. We're down to essentially a week, and certainly we can make amendments. And that's the thing that we said. Let's support this budget. Let's get it passed, and we can make amendments as we go forward and as we see fit and that may be appropriate. So I think the responsible thing is to pass the budget that's been presented, that Stacy has worked tirelessly on. The mayor obviously has. I know Andrew's been involved with it. Devin's been involved with it. All the department heads have been involved with it. The employees under those department heads have been involved with it. Connie and I put in a little bit of time ourselves, and I know the rest of the council has. So I'm in full support, and I know we're not going to change your position on it, Karen, but at this point, we obviously need to move forward, and we can make amendments, going throughout the rest of the year. And I'm sure we probably will.
Mayor, I just want to add that, I'm sorry, I just wanted to add, piggybacking on David, when we went into this and put all the time into the budget, that was one of the things we absolutely said that we would monitor, because we did not know what to expect. So I feel like that Stacy and you and Andrew and Devin, everybody, they all did a really good job. We came back in and we asked to add some things because we didn't want to see our properties, be diminished in this process. And none of us know what the future holds, but I feel like we did the best thing, or what we could with the budget to move forward and to monitor, because we all agreed to do that. So I just want to say I'm in full support of the budget that we've worked real hard to do.
And I would just add that if any significant changes in the budget were to be made, they're going to involve layoffs. And I'll let someone else suggest to me how many police or firemen we should lay off as we anticipate the budget. We concluded that it was best not to lay any off. And I hope that's the feelings of the council. Any other comments about the budget? Yes, ma'am.
I've been waving here, so yeah, I appreciate all the work that everybody's done on it, and I know it's been a very long road, even starting last year when you all put together the package and the video presentation and the YouTube video, and when the public and the personnel was invited to the office, invited to the council meeting. Sorry, that's why I said this Zoom is very difficult to communicate via. I have a lot of concerns about the revenue improving as a business person and everything I follow. Budget makes me a little nervous. I feel there's so many unknowns right now. Again, it's hard to communicate via Zoom for me, and I do like meeting in person and being able to talk about it. I'm not going to be voting for the budget. I'm pleased to hear, though, that you all will be monitoring it. We'll all be monitoring it all along, but I just have a lot of concerns. So I will be voting no. But thank you all for the work you've done. I appreciate it. I think everybody's really put in a lot of good time. So thank you.
Thank you. Before we call for the vote, I do want to, we're always happy to respond to questions, and we've been pleading for questions. I presented the budget to the council over 6 weeks ago, and there has been 0 questions about the budget from any member of the public or the council.
Well, actually, sir,
We will be glad to go ahead and vote on it.
well, actually, sir, if I may add, I have had people contact me regarding police and fire, and they're worried actually about police leaving because of the situation you just mentioned. And they saw you on TV back in February, March, talking about public safety and being very concerned about that. So that really was something that they brought up to me, and I've had a lot of people ask about it. So the public actually does follow the budget. They are very attentive to what is going on, and they will be very happy when we start meeting in person again. So
I'm sure they will. For voting against the budget, again, the only thing you can vote to do is lay off police and fire.
that's not it. You know, that's not it.
If that is not your intention, that's good. But Stacey, Tracy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Showalter,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mrs. Single Sames,
No.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Lesby,
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley.
No.
Thank you. That ordinance passes on a 6-2 basis.
Hey, Tom,
Yes, sir.
before we get any further, you and I had a little bit of conversation the other day when we talked about the CARES Act. And the first comment I made is that's going to be a big benefit going into this budget if we can get that money in 6 months or whenever to help us out. And that's one of the main reasons I think that we're going to be all right this time if we get that money back in, because on the amendment we made a few minutes ago, there were over $100,000 we amended on last year's budget. So there's money out there for us to be pulling back in. So I'm glad to see the CARES Act coming in.
It's going to make a big difference.
I think we all are happy to see it.
The budget that we just passed brings little joy to anyone.
Nope.
We have pledged ourselves that we believe this is the worst case scenario. And I would say that we'll be discussing this budget many times over the next fiscal year. Item C on the agenda related to the budget is a municipal order approving where the council approves fund balance assignments. We hope we bring this something that council should take confidence from, where we identify specifically the use of certain reserves and allow you to assign it. Go ahead, Stacy.
Yes, we do this every year at the last meeting in June. Projects or expenses that we have budgeted in fiscal year 2020 that have been started and are in process, but we expect them not to be finished until after July 1 and the billing to come until then. So this just assigns part of our fund balance to cover those. They will be captured in the first budget amendment that we do in 2021.
Thank you. Would you all like the municipal order read to you, or is there a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Second, Mayor.
Motion's been made and seconded. If there are questions for Stacy, and if not, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Item 11 on the agenda is a resolution for the police department where they are going to asking you to approve for them to apply for a PARI National Recover Corporation VISTA grant. The PARI program is a national program that stands for Police Assisted Recovery Initiative, Recovery and Rehabilitation Initiative. It was the work of the National PARI group that developed angel programs like the one we have at the Georgetown Police Department. And they are making eligible a grant that may allow us to hire 2 more victims advocates that would actually work through Elizabeth's Village to help with that population as well. This is something I'm real proud that Becky, our Boca brought to us with the idea and has helped Devin put together. So I would ask for approval of that resolution to apply for additional.
I make a motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made.
Second.
Who was that quick second?
Connie.
Connie, thank you. If there are no questions there, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Under Public Works, Robert has gone through the reverse bid auction process, and we have a salt bid to approve. We are not required to purchase the salt, but we do lock in the price.
Mayor, I'll make a motion on that.
I'll second it, Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no questions about the salt bid,
Sorry. Who made the motion?
I did.
I second it.
Todd with the motion and Marvin with the second. All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Before we get to council comments, I just wanted to say a word to the council about the continued peaceful protests that are going on around Georgetown. Event Saturday at Ed Davis Park. And I think there'll be, the people are continuing their peaceful activity. And I think some community groups are working to provide some structure around their conversation, and would expect their activities to continue. And just wanted to make sure I mentioned that to the council. Now, if we could start with council comments, and Connie, can I start with you, please?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to say, I don't have anything specific, just to say thank you for everything that you're doing, and Andrew and Devin. I know this has been a trying time for everyone. It's difficult. And, you know, we don't know what the future holds. We do the best that we can with what we've been given. And I feel like with what's going on in everywhere else in the United States, we're a pretty blessed city to have and do what we have, and the leadership that we have with our police department and our fire department and our public works. It's not a perfect budget, but you know what? Life's not perfect, and people aren't either. And I just want to say thank you. And working with David and you and Stacy and everybody, I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the council too. And thank you too, Devin, for all the work you do on the grants and stuff. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody. Just want to say thanks.
Thank you. Marvin.
Recycling seemed like he's doing pretty good. We talked about it opened up a few weeks ago, so it's doing all right, I'm assuming.
There was a pent up demand, and folks were pretty happy to get that back.
That's all I've got. Just have a great weekend, everybody, or week.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you. I probably don't need to say anything else because I might say something that I'll regret. But thank you for your leadership, and to all the city department heads for doing what you do every day. It's greatly appreciated. And I better stop.
Thank you. Going up the screen, Todd.
Yes, sir. I want to thank those for all the hard work on the budget and the grants as well. I know that's a monumental task, especially this time of the year, going through Zoom meetings and not being able to sit down with each other. So one of the things that is starting to creep up, hearing a lot about is, seems like fireworks start earlier and earlier every year. And I know the police department will try to respond to all of them as well, and as on top of everything else. So just for those that are watching, please be mindful of those with PTSD and other issues that fireworks do trigger. Have a lot of requests for some extra speed enforcement. Canewood Colony, Etterwood, Bradford Place, seems like they're and this was what was relayed to me. It estimated 40 miles an hour in Canewood. So, I'll talk with Nick Lodel about that and try to get something going with them. So, and then the last thing is the peaceful protests. I'm glad to see that, the police department, fire department, as well as you, Mayor, have an open dialogue and seem to be going in the right direction with that, and hearing a lot of positive comments about that. So that's all I've got. Thank you all.
Thank you, Todd. Holly?
Well, thanks to everybody for all their hard work, and I look forward to seeing you all in person again. We'll forget what each other looks like. And I did have one thing on the audit. I received that email at 5:48 p.m., about 12 minutes before the meeting. And I don't know if I'm getting emails late or what, but it would be really good to get the audit a little ahead of time, because it's very hard to look it over in 12 minutes before the meeting. So I appreciate all that everybody's doing, and see you all actually after the 4th, I guess. So bye-bye.
Thank you. And we do want folks to have ample time to look at the audit. Tonight, under normal circumstances, you would have been handed the printed copy of the audit for the first time. and then it would have been explained to you. The best we could do to duplicate that experience was to email it to you right before the meeting. So it's just for your review after you've heard the presentation from the auditor. But thank you. Tammy?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, Stacy, congratulations on the audit. Well done.
Thank you.
Second, I wanted to say thank you for the hard work done on the budget. I know that I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people throughout the process, one-on-one, and I know that it wasn't easy. And I know that in our committee meetings we talked. I know this isn't easy for any of the department heads, the police, fire, public works, etc. But we're all in this together, and we're going to get through it. And I appreciate the hard work. And the final thing that I wanted to say is, as Todd said, I've had several people that have contacted me in the last couple of days about the fireworks. It seems like as soon as the places start selling them, people start using them. And is there any kind of a law against it at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Enforcement of that law is very difficult.
Well, I thought we talked about this last year at the same time, and that's what I told the people. I said I would bring it up. And do you have any advice whatsoever for me to give these people when they tell me, what they told me, the areas where they knew they were coming from? Do police even go there and check on it, or do we just say, sorry, it's that time of year and we hate it too,
The problem, Tammy, is what I'm seeing in this neighborhood and you all are seeing in your neighborhoods is it's not just firecrackers and sparklers anymore.
Right.
It's mortar rounds
It is.
that people set off in their backyards. And
Speaking of our pool, don't we?
I think law enforcement on this weekend in terms of enforcing fireworks just gets completely overwhelmed. There are some cities who have had so many complaints, Tammy, that they've passed very strict ordinances that says if it goes up or it goes bang, it's illegal. But we haven't been willing to do that, and folks are fond of fireworks and they're fond of that holiday. So if folks would be responsible with it, we would have a lot easier time. It's a problem time of year. And
Okay.
I know we sit on the couch with my big dog, and and Todd's right. There are folks who have come back from service or other circumstances with PTSD, and it's terrible circumstances for them. I'm sorry, Tammy, I don't have an answer.
Well, I was trying to manage expectations and said, I believe this came up last year. There's not a lot we can do, but I will bring it up. So thank you.
Thank you. David.
Hey, Mayor. Like everyone else, I want to thank all those involved in everything that's been going on, not just in the budget, but just dealing with the different circumstances that we're all faced with. I'm a little bummed about the vote tonight. I wanted it to be unanimous. I'm not gonna conceal that. That's just the way I am. It wasn't that long ago. We were sitting down with you and Stacy and Andrew, and you all were telling us of the effects and what we were looking at in terms of perhaps a revenue shortfall. And it was about $6 million, as I recall. And you all worked on things. We met and managed to get the budget to about a $4 million shortfall, as I recall. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then now, just recently, we've gotten news that the CARES money could be available, and the shortfall, if I'm not mistaken, now could be less than $2 million in terms of reserves. Those numbers sound correct to everyone?
Yes.
So to me, this is great news. There's a part of me that's actually happy and excited that the forecast has changed as much as it has in a fairly short period of time. And, the news that hit us very quick, but making changes to the way city government operates, like, whether it was dealing with parks and recreation or public works, those things they're not like speedboats, and you can't just instantly maneuver and change. Now, we did make changes quickly with things that we could make, but some of the big things you just can't instantaneously change, especially when you have interlocal agreements involved and partnerships with others. So fortunately, we didn't have to make any layoffs. We haven't done that for quite some time. I can only think of one time in my history that layoffs were even brought into play. So I'm very excited about the latest news that we've gotten, and I'm even more optimistic that things are going to continue to improve in this community. And I know I say this on behalf of the council, and I certainly from the finance committee's perspective, we're always looking for ways to improve. We're always looking for ways to save money, to become more efficient. And quite honestly, there's going to be a time we're going to have to look at some revenue streams and making some modifications there as well. And I'm ready and prepared for that. At this moment, I don't think it's appropriate, but there will be a time that will be appropriate. And one of the first things that I'm committed to doing, and I'm sure most of the council feels the same way, is dealing with our employees and the pay scale, especially with the emergency services, but all of our employees. We were able to take care of the benefits and the increased cost of benefits. And I know not all employees might be aware of this. Perhaps some are going to listen tonight. But Stacy, if I'm not mistaken on that was over a $400 a year increase, was it not, in terms of us picking up the tab for their benefits?
Yes, I believe you calculated out an employee, but it was about $80,000 in total.
Yeah.
That we picked up, and I think you divided that out to about $400 per employee, approximately, on average.
So even though for the time the employees haven't gotten a pay increase, hopefully that'll take place, later on. We can all come to terms and do that. We did pick up the tab for the additional benefits. And anyway, if they don't know that, I hope they find out about it, because that's certainly a positive thing for the employees. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. That's all I've got. I feel a lot better now than I did weeks ago, certainly months ago. So I've got a positive outlook on the rest of the year, and hopefully that'll play out. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, David. Karen.
Yes, thank you. All right, since talking about the budget, there is no way that I was insinuating we should be laying off employees. We're not at that point that we need to talk about it. Don't want to talk about that. Wasn't insinuating that. But why I voted no is because we need to start saying we cannot continue budgeting the budget off the balance of the reserves, because when you start to go down to $4 million, you're running out of money for a city our size. So this is a way to say, hey, let's take a look. That was my vote. Let's take a look, stop and look at this and take it seriously. It's not about laying off employees. That's the whole thing. You don't want to ever go through that again. That's the worst thing in the world to have to do. And especially now, one of the things that I was hoping that maybe we can do is shovel some money around so that we could give at least our police officers, like Atlanta did, a $500 budget, a bonus raise to them, because the police now have become so important, more so than I even think they were a few months ago, with all the talk about defunding. And we're not going to do that. We don't want to do that. We're not going to lay off police officers. We need more police officers. But what I'm saying is the things that we want to do, we cannot continue to balance our budgets on the back of going into our reserves, because then the year comes. That was one of the things that was kind of exciting, was there was still little reserves when I was mayor, so little of it. It's been exciting to see it. And now that's why I'm ringing the bell to say, hey, wait a minute, let's really talk about it, because things are going backwards into that direction, and we don't want the city to go backwards into that direction. So I appreciate the hard work about doing a budget, because it is not easy. Been there, done that several times myself. It's very difficult to do. And so, but it's a part of the process, but voting no on it is not saying that you haven't done hard work, you haven't done good work, and hopefully the numbers will come out at the end good. But the reason voting for it, against it, is to say, hey guys, we're heading back from territory we've been there before, and we don't want to get into territory that we have to set people aside, lay people off, do all that. I have no intentions of wanting to do that or being a part of that. It's too hard. It's too painful. So, but I want our police to get stronger. I want our city to get stronger. So we just have to start being cautious and put those things out there. So anyway, Mayor, it is hard to make a budget. And to all the staff members that you do it over and you throw the numbers out and you do it again, you do it again. So hopefully this year will improve and look a little brighter than what we had started out thinking it was going to be. And hopefully 2020 will end and 2021 will be much better. So thanks to everybody for the work that you have done. It's not easy.
Thank you. And that concludes everything we had on the agenda. Is there anything else to come before the council? If not,